Ladies and gentlemen, Behind the Line proudly presents to you another exciting edition of The Woke! Turning on the Woke! This episode is brought to you by White Flight. Have you spent the last few years of your mainstream media career wishing you had melanin? Have you been cursing the fact that you're Caucasian while wishing you were Jamaican or Asian? If your overwhelming white privilege is keeping you up at night, contact the eradicators at White Flight. White Flight offers highly trained professionals with decades of experience in eradicating white privilege. We offer spray tans along with tanning beds designed to eliminate white privilege in weeks. Start your New Year's resolution right by taking advantage of the services at White Flight. Start your free trial today at whiteprivilegesnobueno.com. All those years apologizing for white privilege, it wasn't enough for Skip Bayless. You know, every once in a while, there will be a major story in the mainstream that I really don't want to talk about, whether it's a lack of personal interest or, in this case, a situation that is just extremely uncomfortable. And the reason it's uncomfortable, it's because I don't know what to believe. I don't know who to believe. Every once in a while, there's a major story that I just don't want to talk about, but I feel like I have to talk about it. I feel like I can't ignore it or run away from it because it falls directly into the purview of what we do here on the channel. This particular story, it's one of those topics. Normally, I prefer to stay away from allegations of harassment because it's hard to know who to believe. It's difficult to determine who is telling the truth. Back in 2006, when I was in my first junior year of college, I liked the college lifestyle so much, I stuck around for 6 years to get a 4-year degree. The only reason I graduated is because my dad was closing the checkbook. He was closing the bank account. At the beginning of my second senior year, my dad sat me down and said, "You got 1 year to graduate. You got 1 year for your balls to drop and you grow the hell up. By this time next year, you'll either be a college graduate or Van Wilder. Either way, I'm done paying for it, asshole." Needless to say, I busted my ass, graduated the following May. But during my first junior year of college in 2006, the biggest story in the media was the Duke lacrosse scandal. It was the first major legal scandal of my adult life. I was a child during the OJ trial, so the Duke lacrosse scandal, it was the first time I witnessed something like this as an adult. Now, for those that don't know, several players from the Duke lacrosse team, they were accused of harassing a young woman at a party. They were accused of the word that rhymes with cape that we're not allowed to say on the platform. At the time, Nancy Grace, she was the big star on HLN, which was owned by CNN. Nancy Grace was a mega star. Her show was extremely popular. Every night on her show, the only story that she talked about was the Duke lacrosse scandal. She had millions of people believing that these young men were guilty. These young men were basically convicted by the media, which means they were convicted in the court of public opinion before they even went to trial. The accuser was a young woman named Crystal Magnum. She was a dancer, and when I say she was a dancer, I don't mean that Crystal was a ballerina. She wasn't one of the professionals on Dancing with the Stars. Her style of dancing was more similar to what the dancing queen Jackie Mahomes does at Club Shay Shay when entertaining lonely men. But long story short, the allegations against the Duke lacrosse players, they ended up being false. I don't remember all the specifics, but basically the entire story or most of the story was fabricated. Ever since that happened, I have been naturally skeptical anytime a public figure is accused of something like this. Now, should we be skeptical of these allegations against Skip Bayless and some of his colleagues at Fox Sports? I read through the 42-page lawsuit this morning. I'll give you a brief rundown of it, a brief summary, and I'll let you decide for yourself. But first, make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel in the description below. This morning on the second channel, we reviewed Jason Kelce's late night debut on ESPN. Unsurprisingly, it was an overproduced turd. It was an unmitigated disaster. So head over to the second channel and check it out. Last night, Front Office Sports broke the news that a former hairstylist at Fox Sports was suing the network. The stylist's name is Noshin Faraji. I'm sure I am mispronouncing the lady's name. I promise you it's not intentional. Hell, I have a hard enough time pronouncing names like Fred. But anyway, the first line of the lawsuit reads, for over a decade at Fox Sports, she was forced to endure a misogynistic, racist, and ableist workplace. Like I said, I read through the entire lawsuit. I kept waiting and waiting for the proof of racist claims to be provided. I never found it. Doesn't mean it's not there, but I never found it. I also didn't find proof of ableism or what they were even trying to accuse them of by that claim. That's fine, because it seems like the foundation of the lawsuit are the allegations against Skip Bayless and Charlie Dixon. Charles is the executive vice president and the head of content at FS1. Charles is the boss. Now, according to the lawsuit, Charlie got a little frisky one night at a company party in West Hollywood, and he grabbed the plaintiff allegedly on the boodle. Now, at the time, Mrs. Faraji was friends with Joy Taylor. I don't know if they were besties, but she was comfortable enough to tell Joy Taylor what happened. I would imagine the conversation probably went something like, Charlie grabbed my boodle, what should I do? Now, the lawsuit referred to it as the buttocks, but here on the channel, we prefer to refer to it by its scientific term, the boodle. Here on the channel, we do as we're told. We follow the science. But anyway, Mrs. Faraji, she told Joy Taylor about Charlie getting a little frisky. Joy Taylor responded by saying, "Get over it." Well, with girlfriends like that, who needs a bestie? Mrs. Faraji also insinuated that Joy Taylor used her feminine powers to advance her career in the company. She also claims that her former potential bestie turned on her and began insulting her on a personal and professional level. Joy Taylor allegedly mispronounced the English pronunciation of Mrs. Faraji's name. I don't know what the hell that means, but let's just move on. Let's get to Skip Bayless, better known here on the channel as Skippy Bebe, the former bae of the grown man who calls himself Shay. According to the lawsuit, Skip Bayless, he made unwanted advances towards Mrs. Faraji. Allegedly, there was inappropriate touching. There were long hugs where Skippy was allegedly introducing chest to bosom. There were unwanted kisses on her hands. At one point, Mrs. Faraji told Skip Bayless that she was fighting, I believe it was ovarian cancer, hoping that would make the aging fossil leave her the hell alone. Unfortunately, that didn't seem to work. According to the lawsuit, Skip Bayless, he was willing to pay $1.5 million for a passionate night with his hairstylist. If that's true, why in the hell would Skip Bayless be willing to do that? For starters, you're married, but moral issues aside, if you were going to cheat on your wife, why in the hell would you pay $1.5 million to one woman to do that? You live in Los Angeles. You're a short flight to Las Vegas. You know how many nights $1.5 million would get you in Las Vegas? Skippy could have a different woman, multiple different women every night of the week for the rest of his life. Hell, the dude's 73 years old, probably doesn't even have the ability to replenish the necessary fluids to participate on a nightly basis anymore. The lawsuit also claims that Skip Bayless was a bit possessive. He was showing signs of jealousy. According to the lawsuit, Skippy accused Mrs. Faraji of sharing her feminine powers with Shannon Sharpe. I damn sure don't believe that. There is not a doubt in my mind that Mrs. Faraji had zero interest in being romantic with the grown man who calls himself Shay and vice versa. Maybe Skip saw them shopping together. Maybe he saw them in Prada looking at purses on Rodeo Drive, and Skip mistakenly confused your typical shopping trip for romantic interest. Whatever the case may be, I damn sure don't believe that Shannon Sharpe had any type of romantic interest in Mrs. Faraji and vice versa. Obviously, there's a lot more detail in the 42 pages of the lawsuit, but what I've shared with you, it's the foundation. That's the main points. You can read the report for yourself to determine what you believe. Me personally, I don't know what to believe. I want to believe Mrs. Faraji. In cases of harassment, I want to side with the victim because victims are often afraid to come forward because they're afraid no one will believe them. At the same time, there's been so many false claims. There's been so many cases that were settled for money. It's just hard to know who is telling the truth. Here's what I do know. The mainstream media career of Skip Bayless, it is over. Hell, you can make the case that it was over before these allegations came out. But if Skip had dreams of returning to the mainstream, those dreams are over. Skip was fired by Fox last August. Well, KC wasn't fired. His contract ran out. Skip left Fox voluntarily. You can call it whatever the hell you want, but when you're no longer welcome at the network, you were essentially fired. But since his firing from Fox Sports, or his voluntary departure, Skip Bayless has been trying to make it here on YouTube. Unsurprisingly, it's been a struggle. He's got 194,000 subscribers, but subscribers aren't an accurate metric when determining success. A far better metric is your view count. Go look at the views on his videos. Not going to take you long to figure out Skip Bayless is struggling. And now his legacy could be forever tarnished. It has been a rough 2 years for Skip Bayless. The messy divorce with Shay Shay, the collapse of Undisputedly Woke on FS1, leaving Fox Sports only to struggle on YouTube, and now these allegations. 10 years ago, Skip Bayless had built a legacy. It was full of controversy, but there was no denying his impact on sports media. Now, it's questionable as to how Skip Bayless is going to be remembered, or if he will be remembered. Give me your thoughts on this. I don't know what to think here. Would I be surprised if these allegations were true? No. Would I be surprised if they weren't true? No. Problem is, I don't know what to believe. I could see the potential validity in some of it, but there's other parts like the paying $1.5 million that I'm just having a very hard time believing. Who do you believe? What do you believe? You tell me. Sound off in the comments below. Best way to contact me is through email, btlkc84@gmail.com. I'll see you guys later.